And it's kind of like I work with sexual energy. I can, feel the flow and the energy of people and kind of read them really well so that I can kind of create an energetic experience. And we call it taking people to subspace. And it really is kind of like an energetic journey, a place that you take someone.
You're listening to Shall We Unpack This? With your host, Leilani Carrasco. Hey everyone, welcome back to the SWAT podcast. Today's guest is pretty amazing. I'm excited to introduce you to Mistress Kay. One thing I love about this podcast is it gives me an opportunity to have friends on to share their story, friends that live maybe a taboo lifestyle or have a taboo career. They participate or practice things that are highly opinionated or that tend to receive a blanket judgment. As a professional dominatrix, Kay has received, I'm sure, a lot of that. And I just want to clear the air right up front. BDSM is legal in Texas. It is not prostitution. It is considered a sex worker position. But as I am learning, sex work and sex workers that do so voluntarily, like Kay, it's not trafficking. It's not at the mercy of somebody else. The backbone of sex work is consent. It is highly intentional and it is very careful. It's one of those riskier professions, but very much respectful and full of consent. So I just want to go ahead and explain that right out front. This was one of those last minute serendipitous opportunities, and I thought I'd prepared a thorough list of questions to ask Kay, and the minute she left my house, I had like 50 more. So there was 1,000 different rabbit holes we could have gone down. I'm sure many of you will have even more questions to ask about this. Just it's a rich subject, and there's a lot of intrigue behind it. But we decided to focus mostly on Kay's story. This first part will be how she got introduced into domination and how what her background is. And next week we'll go a little bit more into how she uses it to help people. With that said, let's get to the interview.
I'm excited. You're popping my cherry, girl. I know how long it's been. Like, wow. I love it whenever I get to do something new,
Yes.
It's so cool.
Yes. Well, okay. So first of all, just to set the record and just give everyone a clear picture, what is your title? What do you do? Yes.
Howdy, y'all. I am Mistress Kay. I am a professional dominatrix and artist in the state of Texas. I'm based in I'm based in Dallas now, but I started in Abilene.
Okay. So how long have you been doing this now?
I started in 2015, and and then I moved to Dallas in 2021.
Okay. And so what introduced you? What got you interested in this? Like so many questions.
in BDSM or in being a professional dom?
What did you start with first, and then where did you go from there?
Well, I've always been let's see, a red blooded, spicy,
Okay.
leaning,
okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was married for a long time, 4 kids, and then when we got divorced, I got to explore some things.
Yes.
And my boyfriend, after the divorce, had been a swinger.
Okay.
So I was interested, and it just kind of all clicked, and it was a lot of fun. And then, years later, I had to decide if I was going to do something in a morally gray area or have to move back with my parents and lose my house and my business.
Got it.
So I had met a lady who was an escort in Abilene, and she was really cool, a really intelligent woman. She was a big girl, and she had a lot of tattoos, and was just like not what you would think of as like. It's not like a movie escort, This was like a everyday kind of woman.
Okay.
And she said that she was making like $600 a day, and I was like, that's like life-changing money for me right then.
Yes.
So I kind of put my own little spin on it and took what I do best. And Abilene is just a unique environment. we were kind of joking around before this that Abilene is especially repressed because of all of the religious ties that it has. And in fact, that's kind of part of what I do now. I help people work through religious trauma issues.
So we'll have to wow, again, it's so interesting. So where I met you, it was 2020, and I was like a headliner for a comedy show. And
yes. Okay, so I was trying to remember how we met that first time.
And you came up to me and you're like, "Hey, can I buy you a drink?" And I was like, I'm very flattered, I'm
like, no, in the name of Jesus.
After I had just gotten off of set and making fun of religion.
It was
and all
great.
This stuff.
Yeah, we were like, I like her. She's.
But then after that, I went to your full moon party, and I'm like, how funny that we're kind of coming full circle.
Is it? Yeah, we just had yesterday.
2 days ago. 2 days ago, and here we are, like
this is my little throat chakra thing on from that.
Okay. I was wondering. I was like, I don't think you missed a spot shaving. Okay. So then you were an escort for a few years, and that earned money for your family, and was kind of.
Well, I was an escort for maybe like a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I made like a lot of money really fast.
Yeah.
And it was easy. It was not really anything that was outside of my comfort zone.
Okay.
Because of my experience being a swinger, right? And like I said, I quickly kind of just took that ball and ran with it in my own direction with the domination thing, and ended up turning my house into my home base / party, place. And I hosted swinger parties and, ritual events, and I taught rope classes and shibari stuff, and it was a lot of fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, and you even had like your little dungeon kind of thing.
Yeah. We call it the shedungeon. It wasn't a she shed, it was a shedungeon.
A shedungeon.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I love it.
And it was great. Like, all these little swinger people would come out and like help me like work on it and then, do fun things. So,
okay. Yeah. And are like swinger parties, this is kind of an aside, is it just kind of a safe place? Does everyone present like, here's my clean test results? Like, is it just a safe place to explore, or what are the rules on swinger parties? At least what were your rules?
Mine was, like you said, I just was trying to create a safe space for that. There was nothing like that, like within a 200-mile radius. You've got to go to one of the big cities around here, or it was some really sketchy stuff that was just not, it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't fun. It was just like, I don't know. It wasn't interesting.
If it's not fun, golly, if
I can do this better, like, I don't know if it's ADHD audacity, but I was like, I can do this. And I did.
Yeah.
And I still had, a bunch of connections with the swingers, but there still weren't a lot of people mixing the two, like the kink community and the swinger community. A lot of times they have a little bit of like conflicting rules. Like the old school kink community doesn't really do the sex stuff during their meetings. Like they'll do bondage stuff, but they won't actually do like, an orgy.
Okay.
And, like, I like to mix it up. So, it ended up being a really interesting environment. I got involved with the drag queen scene, and and then we started opening it up to which had never really been done, as far as I know, anywhere around here, like to the LGBTQ community. So, and if you went to a big city and you went to a swinger party, you would have, you've got your straight people, and maybe you've got like some like girl on girl stuff going on. Okay. But there was no like guy stuff going on. It was still very taboo, even in the kink community.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It never even dawned on me that guy on guy was not a part of the mix.
Oh, no. It's still a little bit like, even in Dallas right now, it's just, there are special events and stuff that are, for gay and bi men. But there's still some of the clubs that are just really starting to try and integrate that now. Oh. And I was doing this in Abilene in 2017.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. So you're like, all right.
Right.
Now, this is one question I've been excited to ask you. Like, what's your upbringing? What is your cultural background? Is it vastly different? Like, what was life growing up? Did you grow up here?
No, I grew up in Tyler, but
okay.
My family has really, really deep ties to ACU. And so we would come up to Abilene a lot to visit family and stuff. Mm-hmm. And let's see, it was pretty much like, if I was going to go to college, like if I didn't catch a husband and get married and find someone to take care of me before then I was going to go to ACU. Like, that's just what you did.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was raised CFC. I was adopted by a family that was doing a foster program through their church.
Okay.
And they just liked me and wanted to keep me. So they're great people. They've been married for 50-something years. I love my parents.
Yes.
They know about all of this stuff now.
Okay. Yeah. Was it hard in the beginning, or were they like,
they're kind of in that generation where, like, they live in their own little bubble, sort of.
Okay.
Like, if they don't understand it or don't want to, it just kind of doesn't exist. Like, they can just kind of ignore it.
Okay.
And it's over here and out of sight, and everything's fine,
Yeah.
So it's not like we, like, talk about my, kink parties or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I'll go out and visit them at the ranch every now and then, and, like, I'll do shibari out in the woods, and I'll, like, bring people out there and string them up from the trees, and my dad's just out there by the cows going, that's really weird.
Yeah.
So, and I guess it is, but it's also, they know I'm weird, and they're kind of they're kind of accepting of it.
Yeah, that's refreshing.
Yeah.
So, what was your process in learning about domination? Is that pretty much the title of it?
I'd say so. Okay. Yeah. BDSM kind of covers it's kind of the umbrella term for the whole kind of kink community, bondage, domination, sadism, masochism, or submission and dominance. So the two last ones, like, can switch around. But I was kind of introduced to it through the swinger community. I don't know how spicy I can talk about stuff, but
I know. At this point, I probably lost any sort of YouTube standing, because I post the F word, and I don't bleep out F words and things like that.
Well, fuck yeah, that's awesome.
That is too much work, YouTube. But I just kind of give an overview of life.
Okay, so when I got together with my boyfriend after my divorce, we had a little girlfriend who was a college student at the town that we lived in, and she was very kinky. She spent her college grant tuition money on this sex toy. It was like this thing you, like, ride. It's like a saddle thing. Super. Yeah, it was crazy. I'd never seen anything like that before, really. The way I was raised, my generation was like probably one of the last ones to go through puberty before we hit the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have a lot of like porn available.
Mm-hmm.
My parents, were very conservative, so there wasn't even alcohol in the house, let alone a Vogue or, anything like that.
Yes. An electric toothbrush.
Right. But there was a vibrating shower head.
Oh my, okay.
Yeah. We find a way.
Yes. So, like, what was your learning process? Or was it you kind of like, I'm going to jump in and learn as I go?
I kind of did that.
Yeah.
It's what you call it energy work, people that do Reiki practicing and those kinds of things, kind of energy. And it's kind of like I work with sexual energy. I can, feel the flow and the energy of people and kind of read them really well so that I can kind of create an energetic experience. And we call it taking people to subspace. And it really is kind of like an energetic journey, a place that you take someone by kind of, if you blindfold someone, there's other senses are heightened in a different way. Or if you bind someone, then I've just always been really fascinated with the psychology behind all of it, like how fetishes are formed and why people are into this or that and not other things, or like the tools involved. Like I was really into puppy play. Like people dress up like puppies, and it's really freaking cute.
And you have the dog. Yes. I remember running into you and Pupper at this church to vote.
Yes, we did. I think we were the first ones to actually do any of that in Abilene. He came down to visit and just kind of ended up staying for the most part. And it was around Halloween, so we kind of used that as kind of a kind of ease it in, it's really well received though. It was fun. I took him to a bar on a leash and, let people sit on him and walk him around, and he just loved it.
I know we could get lost in like all of the how to and all of that. And, I don't know what YouTube would do to me if I listed too many details. But you had mentioned how you've helped people work through certain traumas with this. Can you walk us through? Because when I mention, hey, I'm going to be talking to a dominatrix or someone that practices BDSM, the common opinion is, why do people do that? Why would they do that to themselves? Why would they subject themselves to that behavior that's not healthy, that's twisted, that's and so, and yet you've seen it help people. So walk us through, say, someone that comes to you with any level of trauma.
Well, if you grow up in church, you kind of like get this idea that pain is cathartic. Okay. It's part of this process. Yeah, the martyrdom is kind of like the highest form of self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
Or that, suffering brings you closer to the divine.
Okay.
I don't know if it was that or what it was, but I had, in my swinger adventures, had met a guy here in Abilene who was an airman, and he had severe PTSD. Like, he had been in a tank, and his friend had got blown up inside the tank, and he had to clean out the tank.
Oh my
and
gosh.
he had a lot of severe issues. And he called me one day and he was suicidal. He's like, I've got a gun. I can't deal with this stuff in my head anymore. And I was like, you know what? Let me come over. Let's just talk and we'll hang out. So I get over to his place and we talk, and I, get the gun away from him, and he kind of calms down and kind of starts just, like when people get into a safe space, whenever you can be a safe space, whenever people, it's almost like you develop a vibe, that people can kind of trust quickly. You learn how to quickly connect with people.
Yeah.
And
then create kind of like a container for them to kind of melt into.
Yeah. If you're an empath, you kind of, or whatever you want to call it, you have certain kinds of trauma that make you like read people really well.
Yeah.
It kind of is a combination of a bunch of those things, like the sexual energy along with the ability to, I know what I'm doing. I'm very confident in this. I enjoy it. I know how to meet people at their level and help them, kind of explore different places. So he kind of like broke down. Whenever people get safe, they tend to do that. They'll start crying or shaking or whatever, and you take care of them. And you wrap a blanket around them, give them some cuddles or whatever. And he was like, wrap me tighter. And I was like, okay. So, wrapped him tighter in a blanket and ended up swaddling him. Like, just really tightly. And he was like, this is really cool, and
I feel better.
I know, right?
Yeah. There's something very grounding.
It is like, it all kind of energetically makes sense too. Whenever you're in a healing space, you kind of return to childhood places that feel safe, if you have them. And for some people, the only ones they have is like this kind of cocooning. And for whatever reason, it worked for him. And I ended up like wrapping belts around the blanket he was in. And he went to sleep.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was just like fascinated with that. Like I kind of understood it, but I wanted to really understand it.
Yeah.
So I rabbit hole, ADHD rabbit hole / I've always been interested in healing, like I was always the one that was like, rubbing people's shoulders or, that kind of thing, even when I was a kid. So it just all kind of like flows into your little path. And sometimes your path is weird, like sometimes shit gets weird. And I love it. Like, I just find a lot of joy in that. In whatever way, it's like, it's a lot of freedom for me. It's religious catharsis. It's breaking these old paradigms of what it means to be, a woman with some sexual power instead of the sexual shame that a lot of us carry around, especially in the Bible Belt. We live in like the buckle of the Bible Belt. And that religious mentality affects us so deeply in so many ways that we don't even really understand.
You work with religious trauma. Did you have quite a high level of that, or you were a part of the Church of Christ, which I think is like pretty strict.
Leave
you with a big
Yeah, I think a combination of being an adopted kid, you automatically feel, like rejected. And then just feeling separate because you're not blood related. And a lot of religious stuff is all about like the bloodlines and like those kind of ties. It's the son and begat the father and whatever. So there's always just that kind of that sense of separateness and shame that went along with a lot of the stuff that I felt was really natural. Like I'm a kid, I'm in the bathtub and this feels nice. And, but our family, I would say most of church religious life that I have experienced was very, shame based around sexual stuff. And it was kind of like, it was like the worst thing you could do. Like, especially as a woman.
Yeah.
And the purity mindset.
Yeah.
And in my generation, we can just go online and look stuff up or like go get free, birth control or condoms, because that was planning to sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was like a special place the hell you went, if you like did that stuff.
Yeah.
So I got pregnant at 17.
Naturally.
I mean,
all right.
And it was super traumatizing. I got dragged in front of the church to like repent and all that stuff, and then ended up having a miscarriage, and it was very like,
wow, that was hard.
It was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
But just kind of a lot of those things, like seeing how women are treated in a lot of religious environments, how, I have a daughter. I did not want my children to ever grow up with that same mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But we still, went to church for quite a long time, on and off, during my first marriage. It wasn't really until after the divorce that I was able to kind of break away entirely from religion. And so I've tried to be kind of, I wasn't really shy about what I was doing because I wasn't, it was a legal gray area in some ways, but I was really careful about how I set up my business. And, it was focused more on people and the, just kind of the connection to community. And I might have got a little bit too loud and caught a little too much attention.
Yeah.
Got arrested in 2019. So yeah, that was wild.
I remember that. I remember you saying something about being arrested.
Yeah.
But I guess, did they not have anything to charge you with, or was it kind of did it fizzle out?
No, so it was 2019, and when I got arrested, it was 2021 before I ever even went to court.
Wow.
It was long, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Just waiting for, like, I don't know. I was like 43 the first time I ever got arrested, like, and it was a setup. Someone that didn't like me, told the police that I was like selling drugs out of my house and I was prostituting and pimping people. And, at the time, the place that we advertised was Backpage.
Okay.
And so they used some ads to kind of like make it look like I would, yeah. So,
do you receive a lot of criticism at this point? I would think you need to be very self-assured. Is that confidence something that you had innately, or was it you built up to it, or you're just more protective about your circle?
I guess I've always kind of liked to push boundaries and like poke the bear sometimes,
Yeah.
So I kind of enjoyed pushing this stuff around a little bit.
Okay. You didn't feel too shaken by it. It kind of maybe more encouraged you to...
It just kind of evolved sort of naturally. I was having fun and felt like I was doing something positive for the community and for women and for, it was helping couples like spice up their marriages, and it was really cool. But yeah, I've gone through phases where, especially after the arrest, like I was terrified, like kind of like it was a big bummer.
Yeah. I can imagine how that would feel like a little bit of what am I doing, or there's some level of, as a creator, I'm going to create no matter what. But then if it's not received, it's like, am I on the wrong path? Like, that's where I kind of feel it. I don't know if that's something where the first place you go, or...
I mean, I think that you have to kind of find something. You have to find a way to support yourself, to like pay the bills and that kind of thing. And whether you can do that with your art or not. And I do consider it my art, especially the photography and the rope stuff. But I didn't always expect them to support each other, and I wanted enough autonomy in my art and freedom from the burden of having to make a living with it.
Yeah.
That I guess it just kind of balances out. There are times when I've, been more successful than others. It's, thrown me for a loop for a couple of years or more, and balance out again. It's just the older you get, you kind of see all of these natural cycles and things come and go.
You just roll with it.
Yeah.
So very interesting. People's stories. I think that's one thing that's so powerful about interviewing people that have a taboo lifestyle is you realize they are people with a story, with a process, with a why and a reason that is very valid. And just our experience of living in the Bible Belt, we see the darker side of it. We see how much repression towards anything sexual is applied and how it causes people to kind of move, it causes behaviors to come out sideways. An example of that is, I don't know if you ever saw the Hillsong documentary just about a lot of the corruption in that church. And the pastor would go up there every day and just talk about, you just preach about sexual sin and to stay away from sexual sin. It was like almost something he was obsessed about. And then come to find out he's having all these affairs and things on the side. And that's just an example of that behavior coming out sideways when it is so repressed. I know I've had my own experiences of it just being almost an obsession. And the more you tell somebody no, 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 the more they're going to think about it and not behave in a healthy manner. So one thing I really appreciate about Kay and her position, her profession, is it creates a very safe space to explore, and yet it is a very guarded, very protected profession. Sex workers can work online. That is the safest way for someone to earn a living with sex work, but it's not very much. I think an OnlyFans membership is like $10 a month per client. So in person is more risky, but it provides more for your family, puts food on the table. At the end of the day, this is a chosen profession. It is a voluntary profession. And once again, BDSM is legal in the state of Texas, and it is not prostitution. So with that said, we will see you next week when we explore more of the healing powers of BDSM and Mistress Kay's work as a dominatrix. Thank you so much for listening. Join us on Instagram at SWUT Podcast. That's SWUTPODCAST for further conversations, insights, and behind-the-scenes content from today's episode. And for the complete viewing experience, tune into Shall We Unpack This on YouTube. We'll see you next week.